Hey, this is Scotty from the Different Group, and today I just wanted to give a little update about the NAR lawsuit that's been kind of making headlines. And I would love to hear y'all's feedback. If you're an agent, if you're a lender, if you're just a seller thinking about it, if you're a new home buyer trying to get to the market thinking about it, because this is going to affect all those people. This is going to be one of those lawsuits that has repercussions. I'll touch on the three different people that it's really going to affect. Um, First, let's just break into down like what exactly how it is now and what's going to be changed based on this. If this proposed settlement of this lawsuit is actually pushed through the courts and agreed upon, maybe later this year, probably July timeframe. So right now, you agree to a certain commission, but usually based on the sales price of the home. And it's usually, most people earn that 4 to 6% range, right? Now, there's no set standard. As realtors, we're not allowed to get together and talk about setting price fixing and stuff like that, do the Sherman Act. So there's no set standard across the industry, but usually most people end up paying between 5 and 6. And it's just whatever's negotiated with the seller. And so usually what happens is a part of that commission is giving to the listing agent who's listing the home and working for the seller, and part of that commission is given to the buyer's agent who is representing the buyer. Now, sometimes people do buy homes without real estate agents, and that commission that was negotiated before might be either then just reduced, and maybe that agent that's representing the seller can just work as an intermediate. We don't have dual agency in Texas. So in Texas, I can only represent either the seller or the buyer, or I can just be a paper pusher. I can't do both. So that kind of protects both sides of the party. So if the buyer doesn't have an agent, in this negotiation, then, and the seller's okay with it, then the real estate agent in the middle can just act as a paper pusher and push the papers back and forth, but not really truly representing either person and not giving advice on what they should do or not. So usually what happens is both people have an agent working for them. And the way that works, because of the model is kind of set up that, some money is, 2 to 3% is getting paid to the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent will then represent the buyers, and that the buyers themselves don't have to pay any money. The person going to be hurt is the real estate agents that are working with buyer's agents. What's going to be helped is probably going to be the listing side of it. If you are selling your home, likely you're going to have more negotiation to maybe reduce your commissions because of this lawsuit, and maybe that'll be a good thing, maybe that'll be a bad thing, but likely there'll probably be some reduction on your cost because you're not going to say, hey, well, I don't have to agree to pay the listing agent. And what the lawsuit's saying is, per the MLS, you're not allowed to put in there how much the buyer's agent is going to be paid. Not that they can't be paid, but we're not going to be able to put it on the MLS. So you could still set aside money for the buyer's agent to be paid, if you want them to have an agent, because that means likely they're going to get more people looking at your home than if you just go ahead and say, well, I'm not going to pay for the buyer's agent. Now the listing agents are going to have to do all the work, and then maybe try to find those buyers where usually you have a buyer's agent representing and looking at multiple properties. Now there's probably going to be less people looking at homes if you don't have buyers coming around being represented, letting them in the home, helping negotiate, and all that stuff. So might be some savings on the listing side. Now you would still be allowed to offer compensation towards closing cost, and like I say, there are some limitations on how much you can contribute towards the buyers, and that's going to be based on what type of loan they're doing and how much they're putting down. I'll link to, and I'll put a picture up here about that, and maybe an article that I did write about that on the compensation rules, how much they can contribute towards closing cost. So that'll still be on the MLS. The other thing that will probably be affected is going to be the new home buyers, right? They are going to have someone looking out for them, negotiating for them, essentially. So the way it is right now with the listing agent paying for the buyer's agent representation, which is kind of negotiating against themselves if you think about it, right? You know, you're paying someone that's going to represent the other person that's going to pay one way that you don't want to pay for someone that's going to work against you. But now that the agents that aren't going to be paid for by the listing side, so that means a lot less people are probably going to have representation on the buyer side, and that means that they're going to be less informed, they're going to be less knowledgeable. We are well informed, we do know how to represent buyers, we do know what to look out for. We've been in the industry for 20 plus years, buying homes ourselves, and you know, working as agents, and you know, investors and all that stuff. So we know what to look out for, what not to, you know, how to help new home buyers, what they should look out for, what they should be worried about, what they shouldn't be worried about, and you know, kind of help advising them along the way, and just like helping them get connected to people that they're going to need to make this transaction smooth and not. So I do think there's definitely a lot of value that is brought by this buyer's agent, that if you're a new home buyer, and if typically, I think there's going to be some reduction in that cost there as well, but typically if a buyer's agent is getting paid 2 or 3% of a $400,000 home, that might, you know, say $10,000 range for sure. Maybe you're not getting a full $10,000 worth of value, but you know, the buyer's agent was getting paid $10,000. So now they're going to have to prove their worth, and either change that model or still hope the listing agent is still willing to pay them, whether or not they know. Now, I don't know about you as a person, but I don't know if you're willing to do a job where you don't know if you're going to get paid or not. So something's probably going to have to change that, you know, if you don't pay, if the seller or listing agent isn't paying me, it's going to be coming out of the buyer's side, and that's going to really hurt the new home buyers who are struggling to come up with down payments, qualify for these mortgages of these higher priced homes at higher priced interest rates still. So it's just going to be, you know, typical new home buyer struggling to put down enough money. So I just think it's going to stop people from getting into homes, which isn't what the government really wants. The government wants people to be in homes. So this is really a lawsuit brought on by a bunch of lawyers trying to do a money grab, I believe. That's just my opinion. But I think there's going to be change, and nevertheless, and there'll be probably some, you know, there'll be some good things that come out of it. But right now, there's a lot of bad things. So that are trying to find, you can't finance buyers agents cost into the cost of the home right now, especially for VA. There's some regulations about, you know, those costs. So that money's going to have to be coming up at closing by the buyer's agent or the seller's agent or someone, right? The money's got to come from somebody, and who that's going to come from is going to be, I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. I think that's going to be the big disruption, because if from a lending side, from the buyer's agent side, and from the listed agent side, we're affecting all of these people, because we're changing the way that the buyer's agent is being agreed to be compensated for. So I just really think this is going to be a big change, and we'll see how it plays out. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments below. Like I said, this is Scotty Gifford from the Gifford Group, and God bless.